She was only 18, her hands bound by her own father, put up for sale like an old starving horse. The leering men threw money, laughing like hyenas. But then a stranger stepped forward. He emptied his pockets to buy the girl, and when the crowd roared, "What did you buy her for?" he said just one thing: not to be a wife, but so she doesn't belong to any of you. Deadwood Ridge, a town where everything's for sale, from fake whiskey to the law itself and even a human life. A dusty town with crooked signs, Bellamy's Saloon, Jack's Tavern, where the rich rule with heavy guns and heavier gold, and the poor, they sell the very souls of their own flesh and blood. His name was Luke Morgan, a shadow in a red dust world. They say he once shot a man dead in a bar to protect a child. But the law doesn't side with the poor. He fled it all, became a name no one dared speak aloud. Cold, friendless, rootless. That evening, the town gathered like a circus had rolled in. Not for clowns, but to watch a young girl auctioned off like a worn-out trinket. Daisy Bellamy, hands tied, dress mud-stained, face gaunt, stood on a wooden platform. 18 years old, her eyes still bright, though her tears had run dry. The auctioneer's voice boomed, "50 gold coins! Who's starting?" Drunken men hollered, their laughs vile. Fat landlord Graham, 60, I need a cook. Another man, 70, she looks spry. Daisy didn't cry anymore. She just closed her eyes because if she opened them, she'd see their gazes devoid of humanity. A gray horse plodded into the square. A man in a brown hat, half his face shadowed. His voice, low and firm, cut through the crowd. 120. The crowd turned, stunned. Graham snarled, "Who the hell are you to mess with my deal?" "Luke, I'm Luke Morgan, and I'm paying 120 to get this girl out of here." He stepped forward, pulled out a leather pouch, and poured gold into the auctioneer's hands. The square fell silent. No one expected it. No one understood. A man like Luke, quiet, broke, emptying his pockets for a girl he didn't even touch. Luke cut her ropes, his eyes cold but soft. Why'd you buy me?" He looked at her, unflinching. "Not to be a wife, but so you don't belong to any of them." The wind picked up, dust swirling. The crowd jeered behind them. Daisy trembled, then followed him. And so she walked with him, leaving behind a filthy town and a fate she never chose. But could she truly escape? And Luke Morgan, was he her savior or a darker shadow still? They rode off on horseback into the fiery sunset. That was just the beginning, because Deadwood Ridge doesn't let go so easily. The House on the Hill. 2 people, 2 worlds. If you want to know what awaits them at the House on the Hill, like, subscribe, and hit the bell, because part 2 will keep you glued. He bought me, in front of the whole town. A stranger, quiet, his eyes revealing nothing but silence. And when they asked, "What did you buy her for?" he said, "Not to be a wife, but so she doesn't belong to any of them." I didn't know if I'd been saved or stepped into a new prison. His house sat at the edge of town, lonely, like the man himself. No neighbors, no fence, no locked doors. But one thing I didn't expect. The house didn't smell like a man. Old wood, but clean, tidy. A small bookshelf, an old wooden table, not a single bottle of liquor. He doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, no guns on the wall. Luke hung his coat on a wooden hook and pointed to a room down the hall. "Your room, it's got a lock inside. Arrange your things." Daisy sat curled up in her room, clutching a rusty knife, eyes wide, watching the door. That first night I didn't sleep, waiting for footsteps, waiting for a flickering candle, waiting for the things I'd heard about in dark places. But nothing happened. Just the sound of crickets outside and an eerie silence. He didn't come, didn't call, didn't knock. He left me alone. A gentle montage, music warming. Daisy washing her face with well water. Luke chopping firewood. Daisy sneaking a read from an old book on his shelf. Luke feeding the horse. On the 3rd day, he left a book on the table. Basic gardening. No explanation. Daisy watched from a distance as Luke knelt in the field, tending to cabbage, sweat soaking his shirt. On the 5th day, I heard him sing, softly, in Old Spanish. His voice wasn't good, but it was real. Kids from town threw rocks at the house. Daisy panicked, but Luke just drew the curtains, unmoved. He didn't curse, didn't chase them, just said they don't yet know what's worth fearing more than grown men's mouths. Daisy saw him burn a piece of paper with a photo of someone and the words, Sarah, 1867. One night, Daisy crept out for water, tiptoeing toward the living room. This girl's like you. If you were still here, you'd be about her age. Daisy froze, hiding behind the wall, holding her breath. I'm sorry, I didn't get there in time. I let them take you and the last piece of humanity I had left. On the table lay an old photo, a brown-haired girl with braids, her face eerily similar to Daisy's. Daisy thought to herself, his sister? Dead? Because he lost everything, and I'm his last chance at redemption? Luke slumped over the table, clutching the photo, unaware someone was listening. The next morning, Daisy woke early, left a bowl of porridge on the table, and shyly stepped out to the garden. Narration. Daisy's voice softens. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of him anymore. I was afraid of myself for trusting the town's gossip over what I was seeing with my own eyes. She picked up the book Luke had left on the table and opened it. Inside, in his handwriting, if you want to leave, I won't stop you. But if you stay, learn to stand on your own. Daisy turned toward the door, then paused. I'll try just for a while, but if you're lying to me, I'll leave. Even if it means going back to that old hell. But I didn't know. The town wasn't done with me. And the one person I trusted was about to be pushed to his breaking point. What do you think? Is Luke truly harmless? And Daisy? How long can she stay in this world? Like the video if this moved you. Subscribe to not miss part 3. Comment below. Do you think Luke is a hero or a dangerous man hiding his true face? I chose to stay. Not because I trusted, but because I wanted to. But in Deadwood Ridge, kindness is as rare as water in a drought. And when a young girl lives with a strange man, the first thing that spreads isn't the truth, it's rumors. Luke bought Daisy, the house on the hill, the night Daisy heard him crying alone by his sister's photo. The words, if you were still here. I thought if we stayed quiet, the world would leave us alone. But then a knock came at the door, and with it, a town ready to burn us down. Deadwood Ridge was never kind to what it didn't understand, and Luke Morgan was the one thing no one dared touch. So when a widow at the tavern spread the rumor that that crazy cowboy kidnapped the Bellamy girl and keeps her as a sex slave, the town didn't question it. They believed it. They didn't need proof. They just needed a story to tell over whiskey. And Daisy, the 18-year-old with tearless eyes, became that story. At the butcher's stall, the crowd whispered, their eyes suspicious. Daisy passed by. People turned away, muttering. A kid threw a rock at her back, yelling, "Cowboy's whore!" Daisy turned around. She didn't cry, but her lips pressed tight, her chest heaving with anger. Narration. I knew what it felt like to be seen as trash, but I didn't expect they'd treat him even worse. 3 days later, the sheriff and 2 deputies knocked on the Hill House door. No warrant, no reason, just rumors. Luke opened the door, silent. He let them in, let them rummage, kicking over blankets, opening every cabinet. One deputy pulled Daisy outside, asking, "Are you being forced?" She glared back. "I was forced to leave this town because of people like you." Luke stood in the wrecked house. They found nothing, but they left with a parting shot. "We're taking this to a town meeting. You'd better be ready." Seen Luke sitting alone on the porch steps. The wind howls. He pulls a small, worn white hair ribbon from his pocket. Luke's inner thoughts. Sarah, you said if I couldn't save someone, I shouldn't drag them down with me. I thought saving this girl was my way to make things right. But if my presence gets her stoned, shamed, call it a whore, am I just repeating the past in a different way? Flashback. Fragmented. A 16-year-old Sarah dragged from home while Luke was away. He returned to a torn dress and her silent screams. A blurry scene, only her hollow eyes remain. Back to the present. Luke's hand tightens. The town meeting was held the next day in the square, under harsh sunlight, the crowd buzzing like they were watching a hanging. Graham Brandt, the wealthy landlord, stood among them, feigning righteousness. But Daisy knew. He was the one who'd whispered to her at 14, "Grow a few more years, and I'll make your father rich." Daisy clenched her fists and stepped onto the platform when the sheriff demanded the woman in question explain herself. Her voice trembled. "I wasn't kidnapped. I wasn't harmed. And I'm not the cowboy's whore. I'm someone he saved. Saved from this town, where men can auction off daughters and no one bats an eye. Where men like Graham Brandt can touch whoever they want with their money. The crowd stirred. Graham snarled, "Insolent girl." Daisy didn't back down. She pointed at him, pulling an old letter from her pocket. A handwritten note from a hired girl Graham had forced into pregnancy, now living and hiding up north. The wind rose, leaves scattered. The crowd fell silent. If you want justice, start with the right people. But if you want to keep dragging us through the mud, know this. I won't stay quiet anymore. And if I have to, I'll write the truth on every door in this town. Luke stepped up behind her, not touching, not speaking, just standing there. His eyes softened. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone in a crowd. But in the distance, a pair of eyes watched. One of Graham's 3 thugs, the one hired to deal with problems, slipped away, pulling a small vial from his coat. Daisy and Luke returned home. On the wooden window, a blood-red X was scrawled in charcoal. Narration. Daisy, whispering, "I thought we'd won, but in this town, words are never enough. Only blood makes them listen." Do you think Daisy is truly safe? And Luke, will he let someone he cares about be taken from him again? The town meeting, Daisy standing up to the crowd, Luke quietly by her side, the red X on the door. I thought I'd reclaimed my voice, thought they'd stop seeing me as a commodity. But in Deadwood Ridge, when a woman speaks, men often answer with fire. Flames flicker across Luke's sleeping face. Horses scream. Daisy runs through smoke. And that night, we lost the one thing still whole, the horse that once saved his life. But they didn't know what he'd do when everything sacred was burned to ash. The Hill House in the dead of night, an orange glow rising from the horse stable. Daisy bolts upright, panicked. Daisy screamed, "Luke, the stable!" They bolted outside. Flames roared from the straw roof. Inside, the old gray horse, Ash, thrashed in panic. Ash was the horse he'd raised since he was 15. The same horse that carried him the day his sister was buried in cold earth. Daisy hurled buckets of water. Luke yelled, "Get out!" But she rushed in, yanking open the stable door. A burning beam fell, grazing Daisy's arm. She cried out, blood dripping, but clung to Ash's reins. Luke ran to her, pulling both her and the horse to safety. The fire reflected in his eyes. Wet, but not from the flames. Daisy clutched her scorched arm. Luke stood watching the blaze consume the stable. In the distance, 3 figures fled into the woods. Luke drew his gun, fired a single shot. The bullet knocked the hat off one of the men, sending him sprawling. Daisy froze. The first time, I saw him pull the trigger. Not for revenge, but to protect a memory. A whistle sounded. The sheriff arrived. Luke was restrained, his gun confiscated. The sheriff scowled. "Shooting at a man? Crime of disturbing town order. Lock him up," Luke snapped, staring the sheriff down. "If they try to burn anything else, next time I'll aim for the heart." In a small cell, light streamed through iron bars onto the dirt floor. Luke sat, head bowed, hands smudged with soot. Daisy brought porridge, brought medicine. But I also brought something neither of us could say, loneliness. She set the bowl in front of him. Her hand brushed his. Cold, but it burned her heart. "You should have left this place that first night," Luke said. "I had the chance, but I chose to stay. You can't change that." They locked eyes, no smiles, no tears, but their gazes said more than words. They were no longer strangers. The next morning, town market, men gathered, ropes in hand, passing out flyers with Luke's face. Dangerous criminal, town meeting scheduled. Narration, Daisy. No one was threatened, but they still wanted blood. And this town never needed a reason to build a gallows. A bakery owner whispered, "He's dangerous. Killed a man before, now shooting at townsfolk. Hanging's too good for him." Daisy overheard, turned sharply, her eyes fearless. She pulled a knife from her belt, voice icy. "Next time you come near my home, you'll find out if my blade's sharper than your words." The crowd fell silent. For the first time, they feared the girl once sold like livestock. That night, Daisy sat alone by the ruined house, her arm bandaged. An older woman, small and frail, emerged from the dark. "Are you Daisy?" "I'm Sarah's foster mother, Luke's sister." Daisy shot to her feet, startled. The woman pulled a chair, sitting by the porch steps. "I raised Sarah after her mother died young. She was so much like you, especially those eyes. Stubborn, but bright." Flashback, Sarah laughing, braids swinging, her foster mother leading her to the river, Luke watching from afar, eyes full of love. When Sarah was gone, Luke didn't speak for 3 years. Then one day, he vanished with that gray horse. Ash, the horse Sarah rode the last time before. It happened. Daisy's eyes welled. I understand now why he spent everything to buy me. Not for me, but because I reminded him of something he couldn't save. The woman gripped Daisy's hand. You're not a shadow of his past, but you're the first person to make him feel alive again. A pitch-black night, thunder rumbling. Luke, just released, stepped out of the jail. Daisy waited, clutching his coat. They barely spoke when drums echoed from the town square. The sound of boots pounded the earth. Dozens of townsfolk with torches, ropes, and pistols marched toward the Hill House. Daisy looked at Luke. For the first time, fear flashed in her eyes. She whispered, "They're coming." I used to think silence was protection. Silence for pain. Silence for memories. But silence only feeds lies. And in Deadwood Ridge, lies wear white hats, carry the law, and sit in the judge's chair. The mob flooded the town hall, ropes swaying, voices buzzing like a swarm of bees. They called him a killer. But I saw how he trembled when my arm burned, how he whispered Sarah in his sleep, how he lived like he didn't deserve to. The town hall was packed, creaking wooden floors, a slow-spinning ceiling fan, the air thick with sweat, tobacco, and whiskey. Narration: Luke. I stood in that cracked wooden room, judged not by law, but by eyes that had already condemned me. Graham Brandt sat in the front row, smirking, silver cane in hand, eyeing Daisy like a prize he'd soon reclaim. The sheriff slammed his gavel. The trial of Luke Morgan, charges, armed violence, inciting unrest, unlawful detention, and a motion to restore custody of Daisy Bellamy to Graham Brandt, representative of her father's creditor. Luke's fists clenched, veins bulging, eyes locked on Graham. But he stayed silent. They wanted her back as property, just like my sister years ago, dragged from my hands by men in clean shirts and blood-soaked smiles. Daisy stood, dress dusted, arms still bandaged, her voice cut through the crowd's murmurs like a blade. I'm not property. I'm not detained. I chose to stay because for the first time in my life, someone didn't touch me, but asked if I wanted to live. The crowd erupted. Cameras panned across faces, doubt, scorn, shock. Daisy. And Graham Brandt? 10 years ago, he sent a letter to a 16-year-old girl working on his ranch. Her name was Sarah. Flashback. Sarah huddling in a stable, Graham tugging at her sleeve, her voice pleading, her eyes burning with defiance as she looks into the distance. Narration: Daisy. She was his sister, someone I never met, but who lived again in me through his eyes. Daisy stepped to the trial podium facing Luke. Light slanted through the wooden window, dust glittering like ash. Her voice trembled, but held firm. If I have to stay in this place, I choose the one person who doesn't make me feel filthy. If it needs a name, I want to marry him. Here, now, in front of you all. The crowd erupted. Some jeered, some clapped. Slow motion, Daisy's hand reached out. Luke touched it lightly, then held it tight. Luke whispered, just for her, "You sure? Marrying me means tying yourself to hell." Daisy met his gaze. "You're my way out of this hell." Graham shot to his feet, slamming his silver cane on the floor. "I won't allow this. The girl's a pledged asset. This is illegal." The sheriff hesitated, glancing at the crowd. Men with ropes stood, eyes blazing. An old woman, Sarah's foster mother, rose from the back, leaning on her cane, shouting, "If you hang him, you'll have to hang me first." I've seen it my whole life, men spinning lies to hide their sins. The silence shattered like breaking ice. The crowd split. Some threw hats, some walked out, some yelled, "This trial's a farce." Narration: Luke. I thought I was a mute among wolves, but it turns out one voice at the right moment can turn a whole forest around. I don't know where we'll live tomorrow, but if I die today, at least I live true to my heart. What about you? Like the video if you believe one voice can change a town. Subscribe to catch Deadwood crumbling from within. Comment below. Should they leave or stay and fight to the end? Soft acoustic guitar plays, warm, mournful, like sunlight brushing an old wooden porch. Post-trial crowd, some throw stones, some clap, some turn away, some bow their heads in silence. Narration: Daisy. I stood there before the whole town, hand in hand with him. No longer the girl sold at auction, but a woman choosing her own path. Quick flashback, part 5. Daisy's marriage vow in the trial. Sarah's foster mother speaking up. The crowd dividing. Luke's eyes softening for the first time. Narration: Luke, low and quiet. I thought this place would be the grave of my past, but it was just the end of an old dream. And now, it's time to go. Villagers gathered, their eyes unforgiving. Canes tapped the ground, a rope fell from someone's hand. The music faded. Narration: Daisy. The question is, are we leaving for them, or because we're finally strong enough to walk away? Town square, harsh sunlight. Luke and Daisy left the courthouse. A small stone hit Daisy's shoulder. An older woman clapped slowly. The crowd buzzed like a swarm. Filthy runaways! But at least they dared to speak. That girl might be smarter than half this town. Sarah's foster mother pressed an old knitted scarf into Luke's hand. Daisy hugged her, the scent of firewood and dried roses lingering. The woman said softly, "They may not forgive, but the sky will. Go, and live for Sarah's sake too." An old wagon rattled down a cracked dirt road. Luke held the reins. Daisy sat beside him, her hair fluttering in the wind. Luke's voice: "I once rode ash through this land with Sarah behind me. Today, I'm leaving again. But this time, I'm not running. I'm going to start." Daisy looked up at the sky. A hawk soared past. She clutched the scarf from Sarah's foster mother. Is every road away from a place also a way toward yourself? They built a wooden shelter in a barren land near a small stream. Luke chopped wood. Daisy released fish. They stacked a stone hearth, planted vegetables, harvested corn. You don't need much to live, just to live true. A small house, 2 bowls of food, and hands that wipe each other's sweat. Luke folded a blanket neatly on the bed. Daisy quietly pulled the curtain to let in sunlight. They didn't need words, but their glances were as deep as the prairie. Luke: "I never thought I'd want someone to stay." Daisy with a soft smile: "I never thought someone would ask nothing of me, except to cook together." Sunset, a sky of blood red and honey orange. Daisy stood on the porch, one hand on her stomach, the other holding a small notebook with Sarah on the cover. Luke approached, the sunset gilding his face. For the first time, he smiled, a real smile. Daisy's eyes sparkled as she said softly, "Will you be mad if this baby's a girl, Luke? If it's a girl, I'll teach her to shoot. And tell her never stay silent when your heart has something to say." She smiled, his hand rested on hers over her stomach. They looked out at the open prairie. Sarah can't come back, but a piece of her will be born again. And this time I'll be there. I won't miss it. Luke held Daisy in the cornfield. A campfire flickered, the smell of earth after rain, the damp wood of their new home. Daisy wrote in her journal by the window. Luke hammered a wooden frame outside. Sometimes to find peace, you have to walk through every unpeaceful place. Sometimes a silent man carries the warmest heart. Luke wrapped his arms around Daisy, leaning down, not kissing, but pressing his forehead to hers. The sunset bathed them both. Luke and Ishabem, "You saved me from myself." A small wooden house stood in the vast land, a thin wisp of smoke rising into the evening sky, white text on a black screen. The story of Deadwood Ridge ends here, but hearts that know love always write the next chapter of their lives. If you've ever felt you don't belong in this world, remember, peace isn't on a map. It's in the hand of someone who dares to walk through the storm with you. Like if you followed us through this journey. Subscribe for the next series. Every town has an untold story. Comment below, if you were Daisy, what would you name the child?